Is Tangrowth wearing pants, or is that like his skin? What's going on? Welcome back everyone to more from the Sableyes. I'm Mitch, and today, apart from trying to figure out what the hell is going on in this artwork, we're going to be taking a look at Tangrowth in the Rebel Clash format, a 1 energy attacker that is capable of taking some big hits. It's certainly worth looking at. It's very, very similar to Melodic V, except obviously it's a stage 1 prize attacker. So we'll take a look at the list in just a second, but before we do that, if you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. Only about 30% of people who watch our content are subscribed. It only takes a second, and you can always unsubscribe if you like. It is free, so feel free to do that. Otherwise, we'll jump straight into the list. So here it is, Grass Knot Tangrowth. It's a really, really powerful attacker in the right situation, and we've gained a lot of really cool things to help this Tangrowth deal a ton of damage. 140 HP is strong, but not amazing. It's going to survive a hit from a Dragapult VMAX, which is excellent, but obviously there are going to be turns when they're just going to be able to knock you out. So don't expect to take this one into a tournament and win every single game. You might need to get a little bit lucky for this Tangrowth deck to work out. Like I said, we're going to be dealing Grass Knot damage here. We're going to do 10 damage flat out, and then 30 more for every retreat cost in our opponent's active Pokemon. So against decks where there's Zeraora, not going to be super great, but against everything else, we should be able to get some solid damage off. We've got a couple of ways that we can try and increase that damage as well. One of them is our 4 copies of Absol. If there's basic Pokemon on the field, we can play these Absols down and give ourselves some extra damage. That's very, very strong. And the key card from Rebel Clash is our Galar Mine. The retreat cost of both active Pokemon, whether they're basic or stage 1 or 2, is now to retreat more. So that's a guaranteed 60 damage for our Tangrowth to be hitting. We're going to try and half hit most decks at the moment. There's not a huge amount of decks that we're going to be able to take large one-shots on, but every now and then we might be able to sneak a big one. Maybe it's Dedenne or something like that with a few extra Absols on the field of play. The reason that we're not going to be able to get them is obviously our Grass Knot attack isn't going to be powerful enough to deal things like 220 damage, but we've got some other stuff floating around that can potentially help us out. Firstly, Mew as a really, really strong attacker to take the last few bits of HP of a Pokemon. Psi Power is strong. Bench Barrier is obviously pretty good. We can keep our benched Pokemon safe. We also have access to Pheromosa Buzzwole, which is a card that I really like in this list. Beast Game can potentially take some big knockouts, especially if you've already hit into a Tag Team GX for a ton of damage with a Tangrowth. Of course, we also play 1 Beast Energy with our 6 copies of Grass to try and get that Beast Game off. Chances are we're not going to be able to get Elegant Soul going, so we won't really worry about that one. We also have Evil Admonition Hoopa. Again, we're going to be half-hitting most things, so we just need to make sure that we're dealing a solid amount of damage. And Hoopa is actually a really good way for us to attack into Dragapult VMAX. We might not be able to knock it out, but if we have a bunch of opponents' Pokemon with abilities in play, then Evil Admonition will deal enough that we might be able to get the 2-shot on it. So that's a potential opportunity for us. We also play 1 copy of Mind Report Mewtwo along with our 4 Jirachi and 2 Dedenne in order to kind of get our supporters back and keep our engine running. And the rest of the deck is built around trying to get these Tangrowths out as quickly as possible. Obviously, Quick Ball is a very strong option, but we also have Netball to search out a basic Grass Pokemon or a basic Grass Energy. So if we are looking for things like Tangela or even Pheromosa Buzzwole, then Netball could be the job for us. We have Scoop Up Nets and Switches in order to get our Jirachis in and out of the active. Obviously, Galar Mine is very counterintuitive to Jirachi, so we don't run things like a skateboard, because if we did, they wouldn't be effective. So just the Scoop Up Nets and Switch in this one, and we also play a copy of Ordinary Rod to put our Pokemon back if we have to. When it comes to our supporter line, it is a very generic one for the most part. We've got 4 copies of Research, 2 copies of Marnie, and 2 copies of Boss's Orders. We also have one copy of Guzma Hala in the list. It's not super useful, but it is kind of good in the sense that we can just play this down and guarantee our access to Galar Mine, which is a very, very important card. We could also potentially discard 2 cards to find ourselves our Beast Energy if we haven't found it already. So that could potentially be a way for us to set up our attack with Buzzwole Pheromosa. But that's not the reason that it's there. It's there to help us find that Galar Mine. We also have 2 copies of Rosa in the list to try and help us find them as well. Worst case scenario, we'll be able to have one of our Pokemon knocked out. Rosa can help us find them. That is the list. It's a pretty interesting one. I think that Tangrowth is a card that is really cool. It's not super powerful, but it's definitely a fun one. When you get Grass Knot going, it is a great deck to play. So we'll check it out on the ladder and see whether or not we can get ourselves a victory. So we're trying to find basic Pokemon decks with this particular one. Tangrowth, obviously very, very powerful against those big tag team GXs. Not so much against the VMAX, but we'll see how we go. Hopefully we can come across something that has a really large retreat cost. Now, thank you very much again to Sam for recording this footage for me. He's been coming in clutch very recently. We've got ourselves Quick Balls, a Jirachi, a Hoopa as well, which is pretty solid, but I'm not liking the fact that our opponent has a fire deck box. If we are going up against something like a Reshizard list, that could be very awkward. They've got a Ditto and a Ninetale, so it looks like it's going to be some form of Reshizard. Probably Ability Zard, since we've got all of these abilities floating around. Looks like they've got the Jirachi out and they'll switch into that. So that's a pretty solid start for us. The fact that they're going first is also a massive bonus, because they could potentially chuck down a really, really large amount of Pokemon with abilities. Now, they're getting rid of Reset Stamp to find another Pokemon with Quick Ball. We've got a knockout with that Hoopa on the Ditto next turn, not so much on the Jirachi. We're going to have to hope that 4 Pokemon get benched with abilities. There's a Heatran, so there's another ability down from our opponent. We could potentially get a sneaky knockout here with the Hoopa if everything goes well, but doesn't look like it. We might need to have a different plan here. That netball is really, really big for us. We're going to be able to grab ourselves a copy of Tangela here, sorry. That is really, really big. We can chuck that one down. We could potentially play down the Hoopa, but I think it's better to use our Quick Balls here. Whether we find Dedenne or not is an interesting question. We could go for Dedenne and try and get ourselves that Gust, or we could just set up ourselves with a second Tangela, and I think this is fine. We can Stellar Wish now. If we find a supporter, then that's great. We can get ourselves going. If not, that's bad luck. We've got Switch and Galar Mine. I actually think that Galar Mine is the right call here. It's kind of hard to say because we don't want it to get discarded too early, but we don't want our opponent to be able to get out of the active either. I don't think we need the Switch per se, unless we are planning on attacking this turn with Hoopa. We could potentially do that. This is a tough one. I think that Galar Mine is the way to go, but Sam looks like he is tossing up between them at the moment. Going with the Galar Mine, I think that's the right call, especially if everything works out for the best. We could potentially get ourselves into a solid position here. We're going to go into the Hoopa, and it looks like we're going to be attacking for the 60 damage. Now, it's not a horrible 70 damage. What am I talking about? It's 10. Oh my god, what? The whole time I've been doing the maths wrong. Hoopa does 10 plus, so you can stop writing your angry comments now about, oh, Mitch, Jirachi actually gets knocked out by Hoopa. Well, I know now. Now we've figured it out. Okay, so we'll see whether or not we can come into a good card here. Looks like our opponent's done almost nothing, so we could probably just go for another Evil Admonition here. That seems fine. Although, 1, 2, 3, for 5. 5 times 3. We could potentially, if we switch into Jirachi and find a supporter here, we could potentially get ourselves a really solid turn here. We need a research though, so Marnie will do. Marnie will do. That's okay. It's a shame that the Quick Ball was also there. We have no other cards in hand. Now, if we find ourselves something like an Absol and another Switch, we could potentially get the knockout on this Heatran. Well, hello, what's all this then? We've got ourselves a pretty solid position. We are going to move this Tangrowth into the active. We'll chuck the Jirachi back down, and then Grass Knot, and that will deal a solid 190 damage. So now our opponent's in a really rough spot. There you go. I was worried that we were going to get absolutely creamed in this one, but it turns out that our opponent has struggled. They have a fresh set of 5 cards now, though, so any issues they might have had, they should be able to rectify. This is one of the things with these Ability Zard kind of lists, is that they do struggle, especially when you have no access to Welder, which didn't look like our opponent had. So they're going to go for Dedenne here, so they will rip a bunch of new cards here, and 2 Fire Energy going into the bin doesn't seem too bad. They're getting rid of the Galar Mine now, which is frustrating, but it's going to be okay. Grab themselves 2 more Fire Energy. Hopefully they can find themselves an attacker. Here comes a few. The Welder is important here. Do they have Welder as the last card in hand? No, they don't. They've got Spreading Flames, so that double looks like it might be receiving some energy. I wouldn't be surprised if we also see one going onto the Victini here. There we go. So we'll see. Can we get ourselves a knockout on this Victini? No, we can't, but we might be able to get ourselves a knockout on the Ditto, which would put ourselves 1 prize away from 1 knockout, sorry, away from winning the game. So I think it's probably worth doing. I don't think that we can get this Tangrowth out of the active though, so we might just have to, I guess we might just have to rely on finding the right things next turn. It would be great to knock that Ditto out with, or even the Vulpix with the Hoopa, but I think that it might be better to just go for it here. We got access. How much are we dealing to all of these Pokemon? I guess we could knock out the Vulpix. That could be fine. The Ditto is just as awkward for us. We need to take one of these prizes. You can see Sam really thinking here. Is there a way that I can get a knockout with the Buzzmosa at some point? Looks like targeting down the Vulpix is going to be the way to go. I think this is fair enough. We should be able to get the knockout here. 1 retreat on the active plus the Absol is going to be enough, so 70 damage. And we go down to 2 prizes. We're in a really, really strong spot here. As long as we can get ourselves access to a couple more retreat cards, then we should be okay to go on to win this game. Buzzmosa is also an option on that Ditto. We can use the GX attack to win the game next turn on that if it does stay in play. So that is a potential option. Here comes the knockout from the Victini, and now we've got ourselves a chance. Now there's 2 retreat on the active, so that's 60, plus the Absol is 90. If we get another Absol and that Stadium card, then we, I think, just go on to win the game. Now, we've got the Rosa in hand, so I think, realistically, as long as there's an Absol and a Galar Mine in this deck, we should go on to win this one. Look through, there's the Galar Mine. I think this is it. I think this is all we need to do. We're going to be able to get the 190 damage here, which is a big, big play from Tangrowth. We managed to take the win against weakness. It looks like Sam's setting up here. Is my maths wrong? It can't be wrong. Surely not. Sam's just chucking all of his cards down, saying, look at how good this setup was. There you go. Tangrowth gets the victory. So there it is in action. Tangrowth, a very powerful deck. We managed to deal 190 damage twice with it and didn't even have multiple Absol in play. So very, very doable when it comes to taking big knockouts. But as I said, it is unlikely that you'll be hitting those big 300 numbers that you might need to take the win against any of those VMAX Pokemon. Anyway, this has been another cool deck list that Sam has played for us. I really, really appreciate your hard work, Sam. It's always good to have people doing some of these games for me whilst I'm trying to get over the hump at the end of the year, which is fantastic. But apart from that, we will move on. We've got more stuff coming up soon, so if you want to see that as it happens, then consider subscribing. There's a button just here to do that. Over here are some videos that YouTube thinks you'll like, as well as a playlist down the bottom for more of our Rebel Clash content. Thanks everyone for coming along, and we'll see you next time for more from the Sableyes. Bye.